My name is Shaun Overton, and I'm turning this into a desert forest, or at least I'm trying to. This project has been all-consuming and overwhelming. I think the thing that is driving viewers nuts and driving me nuts is not having a tangible plan. And my limiting factor is, of course, my lack of experience, that you can't make a plan when you don't have any experience upon which to base the plan. It's always been my hang-up in putting a plan on paper because I know that I don't know so much. I recently, actually on the drive out here, I was listening to an audiobook, Thinking in Bets by Annie Duke. She's a very accomplished professional poker player. Towards the end of the book, she started discussing an idea called scenario planning. And that lit me on fire because it's the very first time where I see not just how to plan this project, but how to plan any project. Scenario planning lets you do a pre-mortem, which is you pick a path and then you anticipate how is this likely to fail. Scenario planning is a way for me to embrace my ADD and just dive in with 20 different scenarios so that I can evaluate them all. The thing that's made planning this so hard is the fact that I know that so many things are up in the air. So let's talk about water. There's a realistic shot that I'll get a government grant to pay for a water well. And that means that maybe the scope of the project would totally change. I haven't been able to plan so far because I don't know if I'm going to get water. In a sense, I'm playing for time. Why go spend $40,000 on a well that only yields 2 or 3 gallons a minute when I can possibly wait a year into talking to NRCS, and then maybe the government's gonna cover an enormous portion of that funding. Like, it doesn't make sense to speed up when you still have a high likelihood of getting some kind of matching program. What I realized listening to Annie Duke's book was how that's the first branch in the project is a well would be great, but it's an if. If I get a well, then I'm gonna go down this path. And if I don't get a well, I'm gonna go down this path. And while I don't have a well, this is the path of things that I need to do. And I don't have that ironed out. And as my business coach says, if it doesn't exist on paper, it doesn't exist. Everything so far has been in my head, which I think is necessary and appropriate because in my head, I had these ideas and I needed to experiment and try things out. And now I have a sense for what's working and what's not working. I have opinions that are based on some experience rather than watching videos on YouTube. And oh my word, the comments of people saying if you had just watched this YouTube video, you would have known. You couldn't watch videos on jujitsu and be good at jujitsu. You can't watch gardening videos on YouTube and be good at gardening. If you want to have a real life skill, watching videos helps. It helps give you some principles, but you're never going to be good at anything if you don't go out and actually do it. Experience is the real teacher, and book learning or YouTube learning is overrated. Now that I have the insight that I realize how I can plan and how I can assign probabilities, I have a path forward. The other major issue with this project is the limited time. I'm a part-timer doing an insanely hard project, and oh, by the way, I decided, probably mistakenly, to make a YouTube channel about the process. The original inspiration for putting this on social media was after I had purchased the property and I was watching Ghost Town Living, which is one of my favorite channels, and I saw the drone shots and the desert mountains, and it looks awfully similar to this, but I realized my project's quite a bit different from Brent's project. Wow, that would be such a cool YouTube channel to make. I think that's worth doing. I have a love-hate relationship with the social media part though. The value of it is the connections I've made. I've talked to native seed companies, to hydrologists, geologists, just all sorts of really talented specialists that can help me with skills that directly relate to my project. And those connections would never have happened if I was some dude in the desert. The social media downside, I'm sure you can guess, but it's also the time commitment. I don't think people probably realize how much time it takes to produce an episode. And then there's also the issue of producing content that people actually want to see. What I've learned from looking at my view counts is that most people just want to see episodes about plants and water, which is fine. That's the core of the project. But I bought the property coming up on 2 years ago, but I've been coming out here for a week, a month for about the last 14 or 15 months. Making videos and documenting the journey the entire time has made me realize what a project like this actually takes. So the things that drive the views are water and plants. But water and plants are maybe 30% of the work. Everything else goes into the logistics of being out here, or the logistics of functioning out here. What equipment do I need? What kind of shelter do I need? How am I going to get water as a bridge strategy? How am I going to learn how to operate equipment? There's so much that goes into it, and I'm coming to appreciate that people generally don't want to see the behind the scenes. I think there's a segment of people that do and enjoy those episodes, but it's not nearly as many as like, hey, let's see some trees in the desert, which is okay. I'm learning not just about the plant project, I'm also learning about the content production project, which I'm essentially starting 2 giant projects at the same time, the YouTube channel and what I'm actually doing out here. But the thing I love doing is being out here. YouTube is a backseat priority. While I'm in the middle of this, there's not going to be any sponsor message that fits. I would like to invite some of you to have a conversation because I've realized it's a good use of my time. If you're a senior executive or an owner of a business that has around 20 to 80 employees, you're probably using a huge mix of software that feels like a spaghetti mess. If your company feels like it's on the path to needing ERP, but probably isn't there yet, that's where my company steps in. And in a nutshell, that's what I do, is I help you avoid the expense of ERP long before it comes up. My job at this point is just to step in and have a conversation with you about where you're at and what do you want your future state to look like, and hopefully not spend $500,000 in the process. So if you'd like to meet me and that description I just gave sounds like you can reach out to me at the address on my screen. That is my work email. It goes right to me. Hope we meet. I recently had a volunteer out here, Doug, who flew in from Seattle. Man, that was such an epiphany for me, because the entire time that the volunteers were here, it was work. It was just going a million miles an hour. And then all the volunteers left because everybody else lives in Texas, whereas Doug had flown in from Seattle and his flight was on Monday. So he hung out with me for the entire day. And we spent that morning cleaning camp and doing the things that need to get done, but they're not gonna get shown on video of me cleaning up the campsite. And towards the end of that day, which was the end of my week out here, I was just burned out on running a camera constantly. I didn't want to film anything else. And so I told Doug, you know what, if you're up for it, let's go up to where the check dams are and let's just work up there. And man, that was the best afternoon I've had out here in a long time, because I didn't care about the social media part. I just got to work on building the desert forest, which is getting water in the soil. And Doug and I, for 4 or 5 hours, just walked up and down the upper tributary, applying the lessons that I learned, but fundamentally stacking rocks. And it was 70 degrees, it was overcast and very gently raining. It rained 0.09 inches over like a 3 or 4 hour period. Basically just a mist. I was so happy. Just really enjoyed being out here, enjoy the work, enjoy letting my mind run for the first hour, and then settling into a point where you're just working, and it's almost like the kind of meditation that I get when I'm distance running. The first 20 to 40 minutes always aren't fun, but after you've been doing something for a long period, eventually your mind just settles. And whether you're running or lifting rocks or whatever, your mind just goes blank, and it's such a happy, comfortable place. I almost never get to do that when I'm filming everything, and it's taking away, at least in the moment, it's taking away more than it's adding. I do see the value of YouTube in the long run, which is why I continue making the videos, but it does wear on me. So I think it's worth explaining what a plan looks like. The first is going to center around water. The time frame for me finding out on the well grant is probably a couple of months, so it's not super hard. The second is that I have Tiago from Syntropic Solutions advising me, and his whole team's behind me, which is going to help me really understand the succession cycle. I understand getting plants in the ground, I understand the water, but how I'm going to go from prickly pears to trees, I understand in concept, but I know there's a lot of nuance that I'm missing. My job right now is to put that to paper, and I'm committing to this on camera because it's going to make me do it. I'm going to build that plan. It's not going to be the plan, it's going to be version 1 of the plan, and I'm going to put it on dustupsranch.com. If you want to know when that plan is available and you'd like to take a look at it, make sure that you go to the website. That's going to be really valuable for me because, again, the value of having the social media is that I have a lot of eyeballs that can poke holes in the plan. Even though I don't enjoy getting the criticisms or the critiques of what I'm trying to do, I do see the value in it. I think the first thing that I'm going to focus on the plan is selecting not just an area, but a very specific area where I maximize my likelihood of success. I get overwhelmed with the 320 acres, and then I've narrowed that down to this watershed, which is about 85 to 90 acres, and then I started digging the dirt bathtubs, which is 2.6 acres, and going through the experience of cutting all that prickly pear and planting all that prickly pear on 1 acre, and the 1 acre isn't done, I'm realizing it's better to do something very well than it is to do a lot of something at a mediocre level. The first part of the plan is going to be defining an area where I'm absolutely confident that I can succeed, where even if I'm trucking in water, that it makes sense to irrigate. There's no point in me coming out here and spinning my wheels and planting a handful of cactus all over the place. I'm never gonna see results. It's taken a while from a lot of different angles for me to really understand and appreciate the importance of concentrating my bets. A desert forest is going to be a riparian forest. Riparian means that it follows the path normally of streams, but out here washes, because nothing out here runs year-round because of all the overgrazing and devegetation. So I'm going to focus on where water likes to concentrate. I'm going to establish native species. That's probably going to be the next episode, is me doing something that I feel like I want to do, and what's actually important to the project, instead of getting pushed by what feels like externalities. So I'm going to go do a plant survey where I'm going to look at what's already here, what's happy growing here, and what can I concentrate. So it's a way for me to understand what's already working and do more of what's already working. And as I select the area, the plants, then I can really go to town with building the desert forest. And I've been thinking about terracing and swales, and those things are all good and they definitely have a place. I've already done earthworks on 2.6 acres, and I could spend years digging swales, but I've seen a property about 40 or 50 miles from here that Civil Air Patrol actually put me onto. They're flying overhead, and there are enormous swales near Fort Hancock, and you definitely see the difference, but without any work, it's just an increase in vegetation. So thinking out loud on camera, I want to do swales occasionally, and it's fun to drive the dozer for a couple hours. I just don't want earthworks and running equipment to be like the thing that needs to happen all the time. And part of it too is feeling the YouTube pressure of thinking about what people actually want to watch and what they're interested in. And I've quickly learned that people don't really care about the dozer and the equipment and all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes. So that's also part of the motivation, being honest about why I don't want to run the equipment all the time. Is it helps and it will pay off with more concentrated efforts, but I know the amount of time required to do that well. And I don't want to just come out here and start tearing up the landscape with a bulldozer. I've seen my repair job on the road, and I know that I need to take it slowly because I am not an experienced operator, and the results of my work show the lack of experience. Here's my commitment to you. I'm going to put that plan on paper. It's going to go on dustupsranch.com. Anybody that's on the email list will get to look at it and give me feedback. I'm going to make a best effort to give that selected area a chance for success. So that means I will be bringing in biomass, and whether that's biochar or wood chips or what have you, I want to maximize my chance for success rather than think about what's scalable, because if you can't do something well on a small scale, who cares if you can scale a bad idea? The last thing I want to share with you is a visit that I just had to Native American Seed. Weston, he reached out, he's the son of the owner, and I got to go tour their production farm. And I had already been kind of leaning towards natives. That when I started this, I started with a much more, I guess, permaculture approach of just pick the thing that's gonna work the fastest. But the problem is I don't have the experience or background to pick what's going to be the fastest. And so I really want to work with what's already here and what I know is gonna work. And so talking to Weston and his dad and seeing seed mixes and how these things are produced, it gave me some ideas that I think I can apply, and that's gonna go into scenario planning. That's where I stand on things. Even though there's 20 different things I can go work on, I'm gonna go survey the plants and walk in my watersheds and see what's already here. And that's gonna be the next episode, is just me walking around with a plant identification app, seeing patterns and taking that knowledge so that when I go home at the end of this week, I can put plan to paper. I know this is a rambling episode. It was way different from the normal format, so I really appreciate you watching.